A kernel mailing list built for careful private reports just got flooded. 5 to 10 times a day, and not by hackers, by AI. The community did not ban the tool. It wrote a rule: put one human name on every AI-assisted line and make that person answerable. So if a machine helped write the code guarding your data, whose name carries that weight?
Let's get into it.
In 1997, Eric Raymond wrote that given enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. 29 years later, the man who leads that same Bazaar just called his own security mailing list almost entirely unmanageable. This is the Hamberger Report. I'm Andreas Hamberger, founder of Yopa Linux Wellington. Roughly 2 years ago, that same security list took 2 or 3 vulnerability reports in a week. By early this year, it was taking 5 to 10 a day, most of them generated by AI vulnerability scanners, often the same tool run by different people, filing the same finding independently, with no idea the others existed. The channel built for careful private disclosure had been flooded with duplicates. Linus Torvalds closed the merge window for kernel version 7.2 in June, with the source tree past 43 million lines, still shipping on schedule. The machinery worked, the trust model underneath it was the part under strain. Nobody built that mailing list for this kind of scale. I came into that Bazaar in 1994. My first kernel compile took 28 hours, and by the end of it, every line I had touched was a line I understood, because there was no shortcut to get it built. Eric Raymond's 3 assumptions were so obviously true in 1997 that nobody thought to write them down. The crowd was human, it was varied, so different people saw different things, and it was self-limiting, because a person can only file so many reports before they run out of time or patience. That cost was not a flaw in the old model. It was the filter. It self-selected for contributors who cared enough to stay, because the entry price alone weeded out everyone who did not. An AI vulnerability scanner breaks all 3 assumptions at once. It is not human. It is not varied. When hundreds of people run the exact same tool, and it does not get tired, because it was never a person who needed rest in the first place. The Bazaar was never designed for a contributor that does not know when to stop. During the 6.15 development cycle, an NVIDIA engineer named Sasha Levin submitted a patch that had been generated almost entirely by an AI tool, without telling reviewers AI had written it. The patch later caused performance regressions, and the community reaction was sharp. What stung was not that the patch had a bug. Every maintainer ships bugs eventually. It was that the people reviewing it had no way to know what they were actually reviewing. Levine then did the responsible thing and pushed at the 2025 Maintainers Summit for the community to agree a documented position on AI contributions. No policy emerged from that meeting. Months of tension followed, including a public disagreement in January between senior engineers at Intel and Oracle over how hard the kernel should police AI-written code. The argument was real, and it was not resolved by consensus, so much as by someone finally writing the rule down. Speaking of accountability, tomorrow Lethal by Design releases Episode 8, The Proving Grounds, on what happens when a defense contractor's own algorithm is graded by a track record nobody outside the program is allowed to see. That rule shipped with Linux 7.0 in April, a short document written into the kernel's own source tree, covering how AI-assisted contributions are declared. Its logic is worth stating plainly. Any use of an AI tool must be declared with an assisted by tag, naming the tool and the model. AI may never sign the developer certificate of origin. Only a human can certify where code came from and that it may lawfully be contributed. And the human who submits stays fully responsible for reviewing the output, for license compliance, and for any bug or security hole that results. The kernel did not ban AI tools. Copilot, Claude Code, and the rest are all permitted. What the policy refuses to allow is for the human to disappear behind the tool. The choice of the word assisted rather than co-developed was deliberate. A co-developer would have standing to sign, and the entire structure exists to say that AI has no such standing. It is help, not authorship. The line of accountability has to end at a person. The same tool Two-ways argument does not stay inside a kernel mailing list for long. Defense supply chains have been asking who wrote the line and whether it can be trusted for years already. The provenance question does not stay inside the open source community. Defense software supply chains have asked a version of it for years. The United States Air Force runs a platform called Platform One with an accredited repository called Iron Bank. So open source components entering military systems arrive with a known, attributed, hardened lineage rather than as anonymous code. Space Force ground systems run on the same open foundations. When an armed service treats who wrote a line as a control rather than a courtesy, it is answering the exact question the kernel just wrote down. Attribution is what lets a reviewer decide how hard to look. The assisted by tag records that AI was used. It does not certify anyone checked what it did. The assisted by tag records that AI was used. It does not certify that anyone had time to check what it did. That gap between disclosure and reality will be familiar to anyone governing staff use of AI at work. The assisted by tag is not a verification stamp. It is a declaration, and only that. It tells a reviewer that a tool was used and which one, so they know how hard to look. It does not tell them the output is safe, or that the human behind it actually did the reading. That distinction sits at the center of the takeaway the kernel has landed on. Attribution is not verification. A name on a patch tells you who to ask. It does not tell you the answer is right. The community's 43 million line tree still needs a human prepared to say, this line is mine, I checked it, and I am the one you call if it breaks. A community-built tracker called assistedby.dev counts contributions that carry the tag. 3 months into the policy, it found that a small fraction of new mainline lines were tagged as AI-assisted. The site calls this the verifiable floor. That phrase is doing careful work. It is not a claim that only that fraction of the kernel is AI-assisted. It is a claim that at least that much is, because it is what people chose to declare. Also, the true figure is certainly higher, because the tag depends entirely on a human volunteering it. The same 6 weeks that produced this flood also finished a 6-year cleanup, quietly proving the same tool can do patient, well-specified work when a person is genuinely standing behind each change. The flood and the cleanup are the same tool, used 2 different ways. The difference was never the model. It was whether the human on the submitting end did the reading. I compiled my first kernel over 28 hours in 1994, and the ownership was total because there was no shortcut. So if you shipped a patch today with an assisted by tag on it, would you feel that same ownership back?
That is the Hamberger report for today. If this was useful, subscribe and hit the like button. It helps more professionals find the channel. You will find links to everything we covered in the description below. I am Andreas Hamberger, and I will see you tomorrow.
Like and subscribe.